That smug little smile started appearing on his face. You know the one, that self-satisfied look men get when they think they're winning at something. He was even humming in the shower. Humming. The Jack I knew hadn't hummed in years. I'm in shock. I never saw this coming. Not in a million years. Sure, every marriage has its ups and downs. But when Jane dropped that bomb over dinner, I nearly choked on her signature honey-glazed chicken. I want an open marriage, she said, as casually as if she were asking me to pass the roasted potatoes. Either that, or we get divorced. The kids were upstairs doing homework, thank goodness. Tommy was blasting his music as usual, and Carol was probably texting her friends while pretending to study. Just a normal Tuesday night, until my whole world started spinning. What? I managed to stammer, my fork frozen halfway to my mouth. The green beans, seasoned and roasted. My contribution to our family dinners, lay forgotten on my plate. Jane, where is this coming from? She cut into her chicken with practiced precision, avoiding my eyes. I'm bored. You're always working and I need more. I set my fork down, trying to absorb what she was saying. Always working, Jane? I put in 40, maybe 50 hours a week, Mac. I'm home every weekend, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We go out to dinner. We watch movies together. How is that not enough? She cut me off, finally meeting my gaze. Her blue eyes, the same eyes that had made me fall in love with her 20 years ago, were hard now. I feel neglected. Stuck. Is that what you want for me? My mind raced to the bank accounts, the college funds I'd been carefully building for the kids. Tommy would be heading to college in 2 years, and Carol not long after. We had planned everything so carefully. Maybe, I ventured cautiously, maybe you could go back to work? The kids are in high school now, and you've mentioned missing your career. Jane laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Work? That's your solution? She shook her head. No, Jack, that's not what I want. She pushed her plate away, the chicken barely touched. Even though she'd made the glaze from scratch, something she usually only did for special occasions. I want excitement. I want to feel alive again. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache coming on. So, you want to see other people while we're married? Yes, she said firmly. And if you can't accept that, then let's get divorced. Your choice. The word divorce hit me like a physical blow. I thought about Tommy and Carol upstairs, about their stable world falling apart, the college funds being divided, lawyers, custody, everything that would follow. Can I think about it? I asked, barely recognizing my own voice. Jane stood up, gathering her plate. Take all the time you need, she said, pausing at the kitchen door, but not too long. Oh, and Jack, she added as she left, don't mention this to the kids. Not yet. After she was gone, I sat there for a long time, staring at my half-eaten dinner. The honey glaze had congealed, turning dull and waxy. Much like our marriage, I supposed. 20 years, 2 kids, and countless memories, all hanging by a thread because my wife was bored. The logical part of my mind told me to call her bluff, to stand my ground. But the part of me that had watched my own parents' bitter divorce, that had promised myself my kids would never go through that part was already considering giving in. Upstairs, I heard Tommy's music shift to something softer, and Carol's laughter at whatever was on her phone. Just another normal Tuesday night for them for now. I pushed my plate away, burying my face in my hands, wondering how on earth I was going to navigate this without breaking everything I'd worked so hard to build. Now let's check Jane's side of the story. I'm Jane. God, you should have seen his face when he finally gave in. After 3 days of tense silence and those pathetic puppy dog looks, Jack came shuffling into our bedroom like some beaten-down accountant, which, let's be honest, he basically is, and said he'd agree to try. I barely contained my eye roll as he started listing his conditions. No bringing dates home, he said, as if I'd even want to. No dating anyone we know. Please. This town barely has decent options anyway. No talking about the dates and keeping it private. Duh. I don't need the neighbors gossiping. I sat at my vanity, pretending to be absorbed in applying my night cream, while he droned on about boundaries and respect. Whatever you need, honey, I said sweetly, watching him in the mirror. He looked so relieved, like he'd actually accomplished something. Men can be so simple sometimes. I mean it, Jane, he insisted, pacing across our cream-colored carpet, the one I'd picked out years ago. This isn't just a free-for-all. We need rules to make this work. I swiveled around on my vanity stool, crossing my legs deliberately. Of course we do, darling. I completely understand. I didn't, really. His rules seemed ridiculous, just another way for him to try to control everything. like he always does with his precious spreadsheets and budgets. He stood there, shifting awkwardly from foot to foot. I want to make sure this doesn't hurt our family. The kids will be fine. I cut him off. He can be so dramatic sometimes. They're teenagers, for heaven's sake, Jack. They're barely around anyway. Tommy's always at basketball practice, and Carol lives in her own little social media bubble. But still, he kept at it, insisting, we need to be discreet. I got up, patted his cheek, and couldn't help but enjoy the way he flinched slightly at my touch. Don't worry so much, I said, smiling. This is going to be good for us. You'll see. Later that night, while Jack tossed and turned beside me, I lay awake, scrolling through profiles. God, there were so many options. Younger guys, successful businessmen, artists, everything Jack wasn't. Excitement bubbled up inside me like champagne. The next morning, I hummed while making breakfast. Jack trudged in, looking like he hadn't slept at all. Poor thing, he really needs to learn to relax. Coffee, I offered cheerfully. He just grunted, grabbing his travel mug, same as he did every morning. This routine was exactly why I needed this change. The monotony was suffocating me. Have a great day at work, honey. I called out as he left, and I actually meant it. The longer he stayed at work, the more time I'd have to explore my new freedom. Sitting down with my coffee, I started planning. First, update my wardrobe. Then maybe join that upscale gym across town. The one Jack had always said was too expensive. But what could he say now? He'd given me exactly what I wanted. A marriage on my terms. I picked up my phone, smiling at the notification showing 3 new matches. This was going to be fun, and the best part? Jack would just have to deal with it. After all, he'd agreed to everything to save our marriage. Men really do make things so complicated sometimes. They just need a little push to see things your way. And if that push comes with an ultimatum, well, that's just being efficient. Now let's check the story from Jack's side. The basement isn't so bad, really. I moved down here the day after Mark, a colleague, casually mentioned he'd seen Jane having lunch with some guy at that fancy new bistro downtown. I'd converted the space into a home office years ago, so there's already a decent futon here. Better than lying awake upstairs, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was actually out with the girls like she claimed. Dad, why are you sleeping in the basement? Carol asked one morning, catching me making coffee before school. Just working late, honey, I replied. Didn't want to disturb your mom. The lie came easier than I expected. Carol seemed to accept it, though Tommy gave me knowing looks now and then. At 16, he wasn't stupid. I threw myself into work. My boss, Dave, was thrilled when I volunteered to take on the Peterson account, our biggest client and notorious for their demanding schedule. Then I took on the Martinez portfolio and the new startup accounts, too. Before I knew it, I was pulling 70 to 80-hour weeks. You're going to burn yourself out, Dave warned one evening, finding me still at my desk at 9 p.m. I just smiled and showed him the projection reports. I'm fine. Besides, these hours come with better commissions, right? Every extra dollar went into carefully planned accounts. I'd set up the kids' college funds years ago, in their names, with me as the sole custodian. One of the smartest moves I'd ever made. Jane couldn't touch those funds even if she wanted to. Tommy's fund hit its target first. The kid had his heart set on State University, just like his old man. Carol's took a bit longer. She had her sights on some private colleges. The mortgage payments doubled, credit card debt disappeared, and I even started a separate emergency fund. I told Jane it was for home improvements, but she just shrugged, too wrapped up in her own activities to pay attention to the finances. You should slow down, my sister Marie urged during our weekly phone calls. The kids hardly see you. But the kids understood more than she knew. Tommy started joining me in the basement sometimes, doing his homework while I worked. Carol would bring down hot chocolate, claiming she needed help with her math, but really just wanting to sit with me. They never asked about the arrangement with their mother, and I never told them. Some burdens aren't meant for children to bear. 2 years passed like this. Jane barely noticed my absence, or if she did, she seemed relieved. The few times we spoke, it was about household logistics or the kids. She'd mention wanting a new car or suggest we look at bigger houses, especially after I hit senior manager status. We could afford it now, she'd say, eyeing real estate listings on her tablet, especially with all the hours you're putting in. I just nodded and returned to my spreadsheets. She didn't know I'd already achieved my financial goals. The debts were cleared, the college funds secure, and my personal safety net was solid. For the first time in our marriage, I felt truly secure, not just financially, but emotionally as well. The day I cut back to normal hours, Dave actually applauded. About time, he said. You've more than earned it. Jane, of course, had other ideas. But we could really use a bigger house. She pushed over dinner that evening. And my car is getting old. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but a calm certainty. No, I said simply. I'm done with extra hours. That weekend, I created my first dating profile. It felt strange, exciting, and absolutely right. After all, why shouldn't I enjoy the arrangement she'd insisted on? The kids were secure, the finances were solid, and I was finally ready to explore what else life had to offer. The look on Jane's face when I mentioned my first date was almost worth the past 2 years of hell. Now let's check Jane's side. The first time I saw him dressed up for a date, I couldn't help but laugh it off. I mean, really, Jack in his navy blazer and new cologne, like he was trying to relive his college days. It was almost cute in a pathetic sort of way. I had 3 dates that week alone, so why should I care? But then that smug little smile started appearing on his face. You know the one. The satisfied look men get when they think they're winning at something. He started humming in the shower, actually humming, the Jack I hadn't heard in years. Going out again? I asked casually one Friday, watching him adjust his collar in the hallway mirror. I noticed with annoyance that he'd lost weight. When did that happen? He replied without even bothering to look at me. The old Jack would have stammered out an explanation, maybe even asked for permission. This one just grabbed his keys and walked out the door. I immediately texted Brian, or was it Ryan, for an emergency meetup. No way was I staying home while Jack played Bachelor. But even as I got ready, something felt off. The thrill just wasn't there anymore. Mom. Carol poked her head into my room. Can you help me with this essay? Not now, honey. Mom's busy. I watched her reflection in my vanity mirror as disappointment crossed her face. She used to ask Jack for help with homework in his basement lair, but lately, he'd been unavailable. The next week, I ramped things up, 2 dates on Tuesday, drinks on Wednesday, dinner on Thursday. I made sure to mention each outing casually at breakfast, waiting for Jack to show some reaction. He just nodded and asked Tommy to pass the orange juice. We should revisit our arrangement, I announced one evening, cornering him in the kitchen. Set some new ground rules. He looked up from his phone, raising an eyebrow. Why? I fumbled, caught off guard by his directness. It just seems like things are getting a bit unbalanced. Unbalanced? That damn eyebrow again. How so? You're seeing the same woman too often. The words burst out before I could stop them. It's supposed to be casual, Jack. Not whatever you're doing. He actually chuckled. Chuckled? I don't remember that rule, Jane. In fact, I distinctly remember you saying the details of our dates weren't each other's business. I changed tactics, placing my hand on his arm like I used to when I wanted something. I'm just worried about you, honey. About us. About the family. He gently removed my hand. The family's fine, Jane. The kids are fine. Everything's fine. But it wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. He was supposed to be miserable in his basement, working himself to death while I enjoyed my freedom. Instead, he was happy. Actually happy. Without me. I started making rules. Little ones at first, like we should check in before making plans, then bigger ones, like no seeing the same person more than twice. Then desperate ones. All dates need to be approved by both of us. Jack just smiled that infuriating smile and ignored every single one. My own date started feeling hollow. What was the point of having fun if he was having more? I began canceling plans, staying home to watch him leave. Once, I even followed him to some cozy wine bar downtown. Through the window, I saw him laughing with some blonde. She looked sophisticated, educated, everything I'd given up when I quit my job to be a full-time mom. You've lost weight. I tried again one morning. I joined a gym, he replied, grabbing his protein shake from the fridge. Since when did Jack drink protein shakes? I wanted to scream, to break something, to make him feel as unsettled as I did. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was meant to stay predictable, boring Jack, my safe backup plan, while I had all the fun. Instead, he was becoming a stranger, a confident, happy stranger who didn't need my permission anymore, and I hated it. God, how I hated it. Let's check Jack's side of the story. Sally isn't what you'd expect. She's not some young trophy trying to snag a middle-aged guy or a desperate divorcee looking to remarry. She's a corporate lawyer who values her independence and knows how to make me laugh. We met at that little bookstore downtown, both reaching for the same financial thriller. The irony wasn't lost on me. You're different, she said during our third dinner together. Most men who say they're in open marriages are just cheating. I stirred my coffee, choosing my words carefully. I believe in honesty, even when the truth isn't pretty. Our relationship developed naturally, Dinners turned into weekend hiking trips, and coffee dates became long conversations about everything and nothing. She never pushed for more than I could give, understanding my priorities. Dad, Tommy caught me smiling at my phone one evening in the basement. You seem happier lately. I looked at my son, nearly a man now, so observant. I am, buddy. Sometimes life takes unexpected turns. Jane noticed too, of course. She started hovering, watching, and asking questions she'd never bothered with before. I kept my answers simple, none of your business, as per the rules. The day she cornered me in the kitchen, I knew it was coming. We need to talk about the arrangement, she said, that familiar, manipulative sweetness creeping into her voice. I think we need some new rules. I continued making my protein shake. What kind of rules? Well, she fidgeted with her coffee cup. Maybe we should limit how often we see the same person. You know, keep things casual. No, I replied, simple and direct. She blinked, thrown off script. What do you mean, no? I mean, no, Jane. I'm not agreeing to new rules. I think it's time we had an honest conversation about what's really going on. About what? Her voice raised slightly, that edge of panic I'd been waiting for. About how I've known exactly what you've been doing since the beginning. The coffee cup froze halfway to her mouth. What? The ultimatum, the manipulation, the threats of divorce. I saw through all of it. I kept my voice calm. I knew what you were doing when you demanded an open marriage, just like I knew about David from your yoga class and Mark from your art group. Her face went white. You knew? I'm an accountant, Jane. I notice patterns. Credit card charges, unexplained absences, new gym memberships at places you never went. I leaned against the counter. I played along because our kids needed stability. Tommy was preparing for college, and Carol needed to focus on school, not a messy divorce. But you were always working, she stammered. I was securing our children's future, college funds, emergency savings, debt clearance, all in places you couldn't touch. I wasn't blind, Jane. I was planning. She tried to recover, reaching for anger. You had no right to. I had every right. I cut her off, still calm. Just like I had every right to find actual happiness once I knew our kids were secure. Sally isn't a game or a reaction. She's someone who respects honesty and directness. Everything our marriage hasn't been for years. You calculated all of this? Her voice was barely a whisper. I learned from the best, didn't I? I finally allowed a hint of steel to enter my voice. You taught me all about playing the long game, Jane. About patience, about waiting for the right moment. The kids are growing up. Tommy's off to college, and Carol will be too. Her college fund is secure. The house is paid off. Everything I did was to ensure they'd be okay. I picked up my protein shake. You wanted an open marriage because you thought it would give you control. You never considered I might actually find happiness in it. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Jane, all those new rules you want to implement? The answer is still no. The arrangement stays as is until I decide otherwise. The sound of a coffee cup shattering in the sink followed me out, but I didn't look back. In the driveway, Sally was waiting to take me to dinner. She waved, and I smiled. A real, genuine smile. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just living well and speaking your truth. Now let's check a desperate attempt by Jane. I tried the sweet approach first, making his favorite breakfast. Eggs Benedict with that hollandaise sauce that takes forever to get right. He didn't even come downstairs to eat it. The kids hardly see you anymore. I tried next, cornering him in the garage. A low blow, maybe, but I was getting desperate. He just looked at me with those infuriatingly calm eyes. They saw me last night at dinner, he said. The dinner you skipped for your book club? Sweet didn't work. Guilt didn't work. It was time to bring out the big guns. I want a divorce, I announced during his Sunday morning coffee routine. That always worked before. He'd calculate the costs, think about the mess, and fall right back in line. He didn't even look up from his newspaper. Okay, he said. What do you mean, okay? I sputtered. I mean, okay. I'll call Steve Morrison tomorrow. He's an excellent divorce attorney. But this wasn't how it was supposed to go. The house, the kids, your precious college funds. Now he finally looked up, and I wished he hadn't. There was something in his eyes I'd never seen before, or maybe I just never noticed it. The kids are practically grown, Jane. Tommy's off to college, and Carol's not far behind. Their futures are secure. He folded his newspaper with maddening precision. As for the house, I felt like I was drowning. I'll take you for everything. He actually smiled. You might want to review the prenup we signed before making threats. Oh, the prenup. That stupid piece of paper I'd signed 20 years ago, back when I was young and naive, so sure I'd never have to think about it. His father, that crusty old accountant, had insisted on it. That thing's not even valid anymore, I said, but my voice wavered. Actually, he replied, pulling a folder from his briefcase as if he'd been waiting for this moment. It's very valid. Article 3, Paragraph 2 specifically addresses infidelity and dissolution of marriage. The room started spinning. What are you talking about? In case of infidelity, which, by the way, includes everything before this open marriage arrangement, you forfeit all rights to alimony. You get 25% of the asset value at the time of divorce, strictly limited to the primary residence. But I gave up my career for this family. I was screaming now, actually screaming. No one asked you to, he replied unfazed. Still infuriatingly calm, he continued. In fact, I suggested several times over the years that you go back to work. You chose not to. I tried another tactic, grabbing his arm and pressing close like I used to. Jock, honey, we can work this out. We have history, memories. He gently removed my hand. Yes, we do. Including the memory of every manipulation, every threat, every time you used divorce as a weapon. He stood up. I filed the papers this morning, so get yourself a lawyer. Pure desperation took over. I'll tell everyone what you did. How you trapped me. He turned, his expression unfazed. Tell them what, Jane? That your open marriage idea backfired? That your husband finally stood up for himself? Go ahead. He walked to the door. Oh, and you might want to start looking for an apartment. Steve says the house sale should take about 60 days. I threw my coffee mug at the closing door. It shattered, leaving a brown stain on the cream wall I'd picked out years ago. Just like my perfectly planned life was leaving a stain on everything I thought I controlled. Later that night, I scrolled through my phone. All those dating app matches suddenly felt hollow. My friends were responding, and it turned out Jock wasn't the only one who'd known about David and Mark and the others. Even my sister texted back, "You made your bed, Jane." I heard his car pull up outside, probably returning from another perfect date with Perfect Sally. Through the window, I watched him step out, standing taller than I remembered. When did that happen? When did I lose control of everything? The copy of the prenup sat on the kitchen counter where he'd left it, 20 pages of legal jargon that boiled down to one simple truth. I'd outsmarted myself. All those years of manipulation, and in the end, I was the one who'd been played. The irony would be funny if it weren't happening to me. I sat in the courtroom, my heart racing and palms sweating, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on me. I had envisioned this moment countless times, picturing myself walking out victorious, reclaiming the life that Jack had seemingly taken from me. But as I glanced over at him, sitting calmly across the aisle, a sense of dread settled in my stomach. Sally, his attorney, was poised and confident, a stark contrast to my rising panic. She began laying out the evidence against me, a cold, calculated assault on my credibility. Text messages, receipts, and witness testimonies piled up like stones, each one heavier than the last. It felt like I was being suffocated under the weight of my own choices. When she presented the first piece of evidence, I nearly recoiled. It was a message I had sent to David, one of my many indiscretions. Just a little fun on the side, I had told myself at the time. But now, it felt like a dagger to my heart. I was trapped in my own lies, and there was no escape. I couldn't let Jack win. I had to deflect the blame somehow. This is all her fault, I shouted, pointing accusingly at Sally. She's the reason my marriage fell apart. My voice trembled, but I pushed forward, hoping to spark some sympathy from the judge. Jack just sat there, unbothered, his calmness infuriating. I never wanted this to happen, he said, his voice steady. I tried to make it work, but the trust was broken long before I ever met Sally. Each word felt like a stab, reminding me of the foundations I had carelessly destroyed. As Sally continued her presentation, I realized how little I had prepared for this. I thought I could manipulate the situation, but the judge wasn't interested in my emotional outbursts. Mrs. Stevens, this court is not interested in finger-pointing, the judge said, looking at me with disappointment. The evidence shows a pattern of behavior that has led to the collapse of this marriage. The decision here today is about the welfare of your children and the equitable distribution of assets. The walls of my world began to close in. My children, Tommy and Carol, had spoken about wanting to stay with Jack. Hearing their preferences laid bare in front of the judge felt like a punch to the gut. I had taken them for granted, always believing they would choose me. How had I let it get this far? When the judge finally announced the verdict, It was as if the ground had fallen out from beneath me. I'm granting the divorce, he said, with primary custody awarded to Mr. Stevens. Mrs. Stevens will have visitation rights. Each word felt like a nail in my coffin. I was now without a home, my husband, and my family. I felt utterly stripped of everything I once held dear. As Jack stood up, relief washing over him, I wanted to scream. But we can work this out. I called after him, desperation creeping into my voice. But he didn't look back. He walked out of the courtroom, leaving me in my shattered reality. Outside, I caught a glimpse of them together, Jack and Sally, sharing smiles that I would never receive again. In that moment, I realized I had not only lost my marriage but had also pushed away the love of my life. The irony was sickening. I had fought so hard to gain control over my life, only to lose everything in the process. I stood there, feeling the emptiness seep into my bones. My friends were messaging me, sending words of pity that only made my situation feel more dire. Even my sister had replied, "You made your bed, Jane." The truth stung. I had outsmarted myself. I thought I could manipulate the situation to my advantage, but in the end, I had pushed everyone away. The life I had built, the one I believed I controlled, had collapsed around me, leaving me alone to confront the painful truth of my choices.